Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for AMAC's From 30,000 Feet, a Power Talk with the McKissick Sisters. We are allowing our attendees into the room and will begin the program shortly. Once again, thank you all for joining us for AMAC's From 30,000 Feet, a Power Talk with the McKissick Sisters. To open our program this afternoon, we'll turn things over to Ricky Smith, AMAC's Board Chairman. Mr. Smith?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so pleased to have you all join us for the May edition of From 30,000 Feet. You're probably expecting Anthony Barnes to be conducting this opening, but Anthony Barnes had a last minute situation that he had to deal with, and so I will be kicking this off. But I won't be doing it for long because my most important role is to introduce our moderator, Tamika Dickerson, or I refer to her as Mika. We all know Tamika. She's been a long time friend to AMAC, supporter, active supporter of AMAC. Spent a few years with Jacobs, and she is now with HNTB, adding value to that organization. And so we're so happy to have her moderating this event. And she's going to introduce to you two amazing individuals who we're also proud to have with this session. I've had the pleasure of following them for many years. Not that they're old, because they're not, but I've followed their success for many years, and I'm sure many of you have as well, and that's why you're on this session. And so with that being said, I will turn it over to Tamika.
And good afternoon, and thank you so much, Chairman Smith, for that very gracious introduction. As always, I'm so very happy about our friendship, longstanding friendship, your mentorship and support over the years. So thank you so much. Your thought leadership is just amazing, and all the great work that you're doing for the AMAC organization to continue to move the needle forward. So we're very grateful for that. Also, thank you to the AMAC board and the committees, leadership and staff for all that you do behind the scenes to make events like this possible. We're just very grateful for you. A lot of people don't see the amount of tireless efforts that go on behind the scenes to make this possible. So thank you. And then lastly, and I have to thank the people that keep my lights on in my home, and that's HNTB, my employer. So we thank you so much for your continuous support of AMAC over the years, for your sponsorship of this particular event and your participation. So thank you. So without any further ado, the reason why we are all here, as you heard from Mr. Smith, it is a distinct pleasure, privilege, and honor to have my two esteemed panelists join us. I want to introduce them. They need no introduction, but I will do that anyway. They're just dynamic, phenomenal women. They're key influencers and powerhouses and trailblazers in the construction industry. They continue to soar and ascend beyond all the barriers and ceilings that so many minority and women do face in this industry, but they have truly paved the way for us. So we're very grateful for both Cheryl McKissack Daniel and Deryl McKissack. If AMAC, if you guys can give both the McKissicks a round of virtual applause, please. We're very humbled to have both of you here with us today. So thank you and welcome. All right, so what I wanted to do, both of you are so very accomplished. Again, we're just very humbled and honored to have both of you here with us. I wanted to just take some time to allow you to share on your journey, your perspectives, and some ideals. But first, I wanted to dig into your bios just a little bit. So your team was very gracious in sharing with me your bios. I want to just highlight some of your many accomplishments that you have been able to achieve over the years. Now, we'll have to defer to my notes a little bit because I'm not, my memory fails me sometimes. So if you don't mind and bear with me, I will toggle just a bit in this virtual environment. And Ms. Deryl McKissack, I think I'll start with you first, if that's okay. So Deryl McKissack is the founder, chairwoman, and CEO of Mckissick and Mckissick, a national architecture, engineering, and construction management firm with over 15 billion, and I did say billion, in projects underway nationwide. As a descendant of a freed slave who became a master builder, she's the 5th continuous generation of family to work in the AEC industry. But Deryl, who started Mckissick in 1990 with a shoestring budget of $1,000, that's so impressive, and a business plan that she wrote herself, is the first female Mckissick to found her own firm. Under her leadership, Mckissick has worked for public and private clients alike in the civic, culture, energy, education, entertainment, healthcare, you get it. She's worked in so many different markets, right? Infrastructure, and has grown her firm to over 170 employees with offices in 6 cities, being Austin, Baltimore, Chicago, Dallas, LA, Miami, and DC. The firm has managed landmark projects that include, and I'll just name a few of these: Museum of African American History and Culture, the Lincoln and Jefferson Memorials, and she served as the architect of record for the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in DC. The firm is designing currently additions to the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum, and handling program management for the Obama Presidential Center. Ms. Mckissick attended Howard University, just as her sister, and they both graduated with BSs in civil engineering. Ms. Mckissick recently marked 30 years in the AEC industry, so a round of applause for that. We know that you also are very, again, accomplished. You've received so many written so many publications, awards, and have been recognized for your many efforts in the business. And so we thank you. Ms. Mckissick's initiatives were also recognized in Strategy Plus Business, published by the PwC consulting firm, Aviation Business, Construction Dive, the ENR magazine, and other business and AEC publications. And in 2020, she developed a 7-point plan to combat racism and discrimination in the AEC industry. So let's give Ms. Mckissick a round of virtual applause. And now I will definitely move to Ms. Cheryl McKissack Daniel. So Cheryl, just like her sister, they're 2 bad sisters now. They're both twins. I didn't mention that too. So they're just not sisters, they're twins. She's the president and CEO, Cheryl McKissack Daniel, leads Mckissick and Mckissick, also, of course, the oldest minority and woman-owned professional design and construction firm again. And she comes with us with 25 years of experience in the industry. She serves as project executive on numerous high-profile projects, including major work in commercial, healthcare, education, and transportation sectors. And she's actively involved in project oversight and management, ensuring that diversity is implemented during each project phase. Now, I can attest to this, guys, because I work with her team on JFKR and they're doing phenomenal work. So I just want to pause there and say that and give shout out to your team. Under her direction, Mckissick and Mckissick has contracted more than $50 billion in construction over the past decade. That is very impressive. Mckissick and Mckissick is involved with some of New York's largest projects, including, as I mentioned, JFKR Terminal 1, the LaGuardia Central Terminal building redevelopment, Coney Island Hospital redevelopments, Harlem Hospital Center modernization, and so many others. And she also serves as the MTA independent engineer overseeing the capital construction program of the nation's largest transportation system. Cheryl serves on various boards, including the New York Building Congress, New York Women's Forum, and Women's Builder Council. She's also part of WTS. She's under the leadership of Mayor Bill de Blasio, she serves on the One NYC Advisory Board, Jobs for New Yorkers Task Force, and the MWBE Advisory Council. You're very busy. Both of you are so very busy. And Cheryl earns both a bachelor and master's degree in civil engineering. It's her sister from Howard University. They both hail from Nashville and were born to both the architect William D. Berry and Miss Latrice McKissick. And we thank both of you ladies. Again, we're going to give you a round of applause for being here today. What I want to do next is just go into some questions that I've prepared. So please bear with me, but I think this will be an impactful discussion. I think the audience will be pleased to learn so many things about your journey. So I just wanted to start off, let me just say this. historically, the first question that I have historically, when I think of Mckissick and Mckissick, and this is just based on my knowledge, I've always thought of you guys as one company, but I was quickly corrected through this process that you guys actually have two separate companies. Can you talk about a little bit about that and how that came about, and then a little bit more about your journey and just how you got your start overall? So I'll turn it over to either one of you first, whoever wants to go first. Cheryl?
Okay, well, Cheryl, we both worked in the old line company that was started by our great-great-grandfather 5 generations ago in 1790, is when our great-great-grandfather came over as a slave, and passed a building down to our great-grandfather, who passed it to our grandfather. And our grandfather and his brother started our family business in Tennessee in 1905. That business was passed to my father, and he had 3 girls, and all 3 of us worked in the company. Cheryl and I started working there since we were 6, but still, I'm trying to stay on subject because I could say a whole lot about all of that. But Cheryl took over that firm, which is the old line company. And I just kind of wanted to start my own thing, see if I could push my own little red wagon. So I started Mckissick and Mckissick of DC in 1990, and it just expanded to all these other cities. So we're 30 years old. So that's how we're separate, but we work well together.
Cheryl, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just add that I was working for Turner Construction when my mother called my boss and told my boss that I would be quitting that day to come back home and help her run the family business. So I did that. I actually did leave Turner that day, and the following week I started commuting down to Nashville. And I would leave on a Monday and from New York, and then I would come back to New York on Thursday. So I would spend Monday through Thursday in Nashville, Tennessee. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I too decided that I wanted to go out on my own, that I could not continue to commute. I mean, I was a newlywed at the time.
Yeah.
And my husband was in New York. So I started the Mckissick Group. The Mckissick Group is a construction management company. I also started Mckissick and Mckissick Architects PC in New York, so we could practice architecture as well. Over the years, I divested from the architecture group, so we do not have architecture as a part of our services. We only have construction management, program management, and general contracting. And then in the takeover, Mckissick and Mckissick, the original company started by our grandfather and his brother, who happened to be the first Black licensed architects in the country. Amazing. With license 117 and 118 in the state of Tennessee. That
is amazing. I mean, your lineage is just, it dates back, it was Moses Mckissick, right? Did I read that correctly? Moses Mckissick was your great, wow, that is such an amazing journey. And I thank both of you for sharing that. I could just sit all day and listen to the evolution of your story and, you know, your success and your journey. It's just so impactful to so many, and you serve as role models for so many people, and thank you for paving the way. And I thank your forefathers for everything that they've done to plant that seed. So thank you so much for that.
Well, Tamika, I'm glad you asked that question because it's very confusing. And people put a lot of information out there that is so off base that we just scratch our heads. Deryl and I are very close. We are twins, we are sisters, we are family first. Yes. We're business women second. As Deryl said, we have worked together. I have, worked on projects in DC with her. She's worked on projects in New York with me. And we continue to collaborate. There's people would like to say, there's this undercurrent between sisters is out there, but it's so far from the truth. It's not true. Just to be clear, and Daryl, let's make sure I get this straight. So Mckissick, New York, which is Philadelphia and some other areas, we are general contractors, construction managers, and program managers. Daryl's company, they're architects and program managers and construction managers. Did I get that right, Daryl?
Yes, that's correct. And we're in DC, Baltimore, Chicago, LA, Dallas, and Austin.
Impressive. It's so impressive. No, thank you for helping me better understand that as well, because for the longest, I really did. I thought you were one company and kind of just conquered and divided, but thank you for that. Now, you bring me to another question that I would like to piggyback on. Having been involved in a family business myself, I know that sometimes that comes with some unique, and I don't like to call them challenges, but teachable moments, especially around maybe conflict resolution. How, if you could share with those maybe who have a family business or some small businesses out there, when you were working together, how did you guys, is anything, any tips that you would like to share that have worked successfully for you when you were in your family business?
So Cheryl and I used to work together, and we would team up against our father's secretary. And she would try and clock our time, and we weren't having it. So we pulled all kind of pranks on her.
My goodness.
Okay, Daryl, now you had something serious to say, I think.
Well, I just think over the years that our businesses have evolved, and how we work together has evolved. I think the biggest takeaway I would tell people is to have communication. Yes. Because what happens, the bigger you get, the information by the time it gets to Cheryl and I, it's so convoluted on both sides. It's never the true truth.
I can imagine.
And so when we get it, we have to go back in, peel back a few layers, and then say, oh, okay, well, everybody's trying to do the right thing, but that email may not have sounded right, or the call may not have sounded the way it should sound, but everybody's trying to get to the same point. So I think, communication is key. I think we all pretty much understand that all boats rise. So if Cheryl does something great and it's, gets a lot of publicity, it still helps my company as well. And I wish her the best in all of her projects that she wins and does. And she does, I think she does. She's excited about the projects I've won and the things that we do, because each one of us keep building on each other. And, I think we have a staff now that understands that, and they try to work together.
So, I would add, for a family business, that even Daryl and I, as twins, we're still different. We're different people. We lead different lives. We live in different cities. We're different. And so as much as we are similar, we still need our own independent areas. And we're going to give our own independent contributions to whatever family business or endeavor that we're doing. And so I think it's okay. It should be okay for everyone to be different and to bring a different message or a different concept to the table, but it all should be treated the same. The allow everyone to have their own independence.
Well, and that's the good thing I think about working at our companies, is that these companies are really built for everyone to have a seat at the table. And we want to hear the perspectives of all of our employees. And the reason why is because they bring a different perspective.
Absolutely.
And that is how you actually become the best of the best, and you answer the mail for a lot of people, because you're listening to an array of people. I had the opportunity to visit the Apple Cupertino campus. And, when I got there at lunchtime, when the people were coming out, it was people of all races, genders, ethnicity, everything, from all ages, And that's why they're the Tiffany of the FANG group, because they are listening to everybody and getting a good perspective. And I think that's how you answer, you get to the best solutions.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I will tell you that diversity and inclusion, and that's a question that I do have later on, but I think I may get to that now. It really does bring about innovative solutions for your organization, but also for the clients that we serve, as well as the communities that we serve. I think when you have different voices at the table, you bring about so many different perspectives. So I totally agree with you on that. That brings me to my next question about your leadership style. And you hit on something. I think people may think too, because you're twins, everything is the same, and but I like the fact that you have your own individuality. And I know that good leadership brings about success. You both have had so much success. Talk to us a little bit about your leadership styles and how those may differ, or maybe they're similar, if you would care to share on that. And how would you describe your leadership styles?
Well, my leadership style is probably a little loose. That's the best way to put it. I provide a framework for my staff to work within, but then I allow them to work in that framework. And within that framework, it's built for them to reach their maximum potential. And so you have to be able to work at our company, you have to be able to depend on yourself. You have to, be an achiever. Because if you're looking for someone to tell you what to do from A to Z, it's probably not going to happen.
Absolutely.
I also lead by making decisions. Okay, so, I'll take whatever the information is at whatever particular time it is, whether I have all the information or not, and I will make a decision and give a clear direction. And so I think as a leader, I think that's important. Also, I have empathy and I am compassionate with my staff. I'm so sorry about that. Somebody's calling. Never fails with the Zoom.
Yes, no problem.
And so anyway, there's always room for improvement. And, if I had to say where I need to improve, is that I'm not always clear because I go from A to Z real quickly. I don't give a lot of detail for in between because I know where we need to go, but I can't always get it out. So, that's what I have to work on as a leader.
So I would say that my management style is very similar to Cheryl. We have just enough structure so that, there's a framework for people to work within, but we leave it loose enough for people to be creative and innovative and work in their space. And I totally agree. We tell people your job is a white canvas, okay? And here are the things that we need to accomplish. Now you figure out how to do that. That's why you're here, okay? And we're not going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff. And yeah, we have the necessary procedures and guidelines, but it's very open. So it's for people who are self-starters and independent. I'm really big on culture. And I believe that a healthy person, and that means a person as a whole, needs to come to work healthy.
Yes.
But we need to be able to fulfill them at work. So they should be in a position that they really are excited about. Now, there's still 20% of the time you don't want to do what you have to do on your job. And that's just part of life, right? But we want to try to get to 80% that they are excited about what they're doing. So we believe in to be a healthy person. And by the way, a healthy person builds a healthy team, and a healthy team makes a healthy company. And that just extends on out to the community. I mean, our mission is that, we want to enhance people's lives through the design and construction industry. So we're looking for people that are humble, hungry, and smart. So they're still humble, they're malleable. They don't, we go to a meeting and we don't agree on everything and we pick Susie's idea, or we take Bob and Dan's idea and make it one idea. We're all gonna leave there and work on the solution that we picked. Like Cheryl said, someone has to make the final decision. When it gets to me, I have to make the final decision. We have senior managers, they need to make their decisions. And the team needs to move forward with that. We don't want anybody passive aggressive when they leave there, or retaliating or retreating, saying they didn't take my idea, so I'm not going to give them anymore.
Yeah.
That's stuff that happens on the playground, right? But we're still trying to fix people that are adults, not to act that way. And now we're hiring people. I mean, when we're hiring people, half of the interview would be around this humble, hungry, and smart. So hungry is, are you hungry? Do you have a drive to go out here and independently do this job and push it forward? And then smart is not book smart, it's emotional smartness. Do you know how to feel a room? When you walk in the room, do you know what to say, what not to say, or understand the dynamics of what's going on? And do you know how to treat people with respect? So, we feel like we've started 6 years ago hiring people that way. And I started making it a clear message. And people that did not want to fit in that humble, hungry, smart, it was just going to be difficult for them to leave there. And you'd be surprised at people that just left, which was great because they were not going to fit in this new culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is phenomenal. I'm going to type that out and put that on my top of my computer. Hungry, humble, and smart. I think that is dynamic. I mean, that speaks volumes about why you're so successful as leaders, why I've heard so many over the years. I'll tell you, I've been in aviation and construction, probably, I don't want to date myself here, 20, 25 years plus. And I've heard nothing but great things about the both of you and your leadership. And that's from people at different levels in your organization. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that, when you allow people to have flexibility to bring their whole selves to work, that's what I say. If I have to work for an organization that doesn't allow me to be Tamika at the core of me, if I have to leave Tamika at the door, that's not the right organization for me. So I thank you for doing that for your employees as well. That's phenomenal. Now, so to piggyback off of the diversity and inclusion question, we know that diversity and inclusion has been a long time been top of mind for a lot of clients, especially in the municipal space. And it is definitely the center of the mission and vision of AMAC. And it's now we're seeing it. If you looked on LinkedIn, you can't go on LinkedIn without seeing another diversity and inclusion officer being appointed to private companies. Tell me what ways, as executive leaders, as yourself, can you create exposure and opportunities for people of color? How do you guys go about doing that in your organizations? And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit about, talking about diversity and inclusion, but what ways are you guys doing that?
Do you mean to reach out to minority, like the talent pool, to bring that into
like recruitment
our companies?
and even those that's in your organization, just to make sure that, and I can rephrase that a little bit. I think that's a good way. Just let's talk about recruitment for a while. For a bit, and then we can go into our next question.
Well, I always like to have a diverse pool of candidates to talk to.
Yes.
And there are certain areas that we feel really should be diverse people. And we try to mimic America, right? So and sometimes America could be a little skewed in the wrong way, but we try to mimic America and the places that we're in. And usually that's the kind of candidates that end up coming to Mckissick and the ones we end up selecting. I mean, I just feel like there are a lot of qualified people out there. And then, our next one is the humble, hungry, and smart, but also we need people of color. I just feel like as a minority business, and a female business, people should be coming to us asking for the top African Americans, Latinos, the women. They should be working for us. And we've won jobs that way because, you know, there are projects that are in areas that are predominantly minority. And when they see a project manager that is a minority, it helps. It goes a long way when you're dealing in those types of neighborhoods. So that's one. But Cheryl and I both just recently got onto or was asked to join the ACE mentoring board as the executive committee to help funnel minority students into the industry, because ACE works on that. They they bring tools and learning techniques to schools to help them help kids get interested in STEM. And that's what we really need. We need our kids to be interested in STEM. So.
No, I totally agree with you. Cheryl, does anything you want to add to that?
Yes. Well, people tend to hire people that look like them. So the way to increase diversity is to make sure you're intentional on your leadership staff. Your leadership staff is what has to be diverse. And if it's diverse, then that will trickle down to everyone else or to the rest of the company. Also, when potential candidates look at your company online and they see all this diversity in the leadership, that also attracts them. Because I can't tell you the numerous number of companies that I go look at and I only see white males. I mean, and that's it. And I look at that, the first thought that comes to my mind, can't you have one female? Can't you have one person of color, just one?
Exactly.
And not the superintendent, but someone in that C-suite that, is, representative of some diverse community. And it's amazing to me how you don't see that. You can look at seminars, right, that firms give on to promote their firm, and it could be all white males.
I agree.
And so it is making a concerted effort to include diverse candidates in everything that you do. Also, a lot of firms, if they want to really seriously consider increasing diversity as far as their staff, they need to go to the historically Black colleges, set up some type of alliance, and on a regular basis, have candidates, go meet the candidates. It's just being decisive about it. Deryl just talked about the fact that we should have the leading Latino, Asian, Black, whatever diverse candidates are out there, that the rest of the construction and architecture design industry want to come and take. Well, guess what? That's exactly what they do. They come and take our talent after
Yes.
we have cultivated it.
Yes.
And that's fine too. I mean, I don't worry about that, because we've created an individual who now is in high demand, and that person, we've made them better. They've come through our office and we've made them better. But that does happen on a regular basis.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. And we do, I recognize that as well. A couple of points that you've made, I've dealt with that too in the industry, right? Where I have been in a room and I'm the only person of color there, not only woman, but just person of color. And that has been historical, not only in aviation, but construction. And I've also been on the other side of that, where I have worked for a small firm and then you're recruited by a larger firm after you've been cultivated and groomed, you know. And
Mhm.
so I do think it is important for us to try to reach back and bring talent back to our minority-owned firms, and to stay there if you can, because I think there's a lot of potential for growth there. So thank you both for sharing on that topic. Another topic I wanted to ask you, again, just kind of piggybacking off of similar issue, as two prominent African-American females in the construction industry, what obstacles have you had to overcome in working in a predominantly male industry and environment? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well,
We've had to overcome
start, right?
a lot. It's like so much. How much time do we have? And it's still happening.
It's
As a matter of
We can
fact,
always have another segment to talk about just that if we like.
well,
But
when we were younger, Tamika, we had no idea when we got that smack on the butt after working all day from our boss that was sexist. That was the
I
issue.
understand.
We didn't even know that was bad. And when I walked into my boss's office, and he had the Confederate flag life size behind his desk, it was bigger than him. I didn't even know. I just didn't even think anything about it. I was just so busy trying to do my job and work, you know, and it wasn't until he started talking about the Black laborers on our job and that they were lazy and whatever, that I really realized that, wait a minute, you know, he is just a racist.
Yes.
And these boys were in school at night, all night. That's why at lunchtime, they would take a nap. And he had no idea. He just assumed that they were lazy. Yeah.
So to that point, you know, I think we're always having to overcome that our ice is not cold enough. Okay. That there's a stigma with MWBE firms not giving the same quality service and at the same time costing more. Now, does that even make sense?
No, it does not. No, it does not.
And you know, Tamika, as a Black woman, we strive for excellence, and we over qualify ourselves.
Yes.
We go to the furthest extent that we can to make sure that we have checked all the boxes for qualifications. And we do that at a higher number, I think, than some of our white male counterparts. And we need to stop putting that pressure on ourselves, first of all. I need to say that.
Yeah,
Second of all, as a result of that, our service can tend to be better.
yes.
Because we have the best and the brightest working at it. So overcoming that stigma, I still see it as a problem. Just 2 years ago, a developer approached me to go after a project with the Dormitory Authority of New York State. And they had never worked with the Dormitory Authority, but we have for the last 25, 30 years. So they needed our experience with the Dormitory Authority. So when they sent over the JV agreement, they had us at like 20%, really performing 10% of the work. So I called the developer up and I said, listen, this is not how we operate. And he said, you know, when you do these joint ventures with these large companies, with like Turner, Skanska, Gilbane, all these companies, and I know it's, you know, 60-40, sometimes 50-50, whatever it is, you don't actually do the work, do you? He said that to me.
Really?
This was just 2 years ago, just 2 years ago. And you know what? I just said, now this is an easy one for me. I said, Mr. I don't want to say his name. You know what? It's been a delight knowing you, but we can't proceed. You're going to have to find someone else.
Absolutely.
And so that's still out there that I'm trying to articulate it. We want you to be involved, but it's window dressing.
Window, yes.
Yeah.
We want
that's
you to be
exactly
there,
right.
but we're window dressing. So we're going to talk out of both sides of our mouth. Tell you how much we need at MWBE. And then at the same time, we're going to tell you everything, all the requirements that you can't meet to win the job. So really, they're just checking a box.
Yeah.
And so we're still, I believe, trying to overcome that. Instead of being able to compete with a level playing field. Just let us compete with a level playing field. That's all we ask for. You know, we put in bids on projects and, you know, like Daryl said, like the subcontractors and the general contractors are meeting, you know, for drinks, talking their numbers over drinks. And here we are, the outsiders. So that's not a level playing field.
No, it's not.
So how do you make it a level playing field? And that's what we have to do. And if you really want minority participation, you can do it. That's the bottom line. On our contracts in New York, all of our, you know, where we hold subcontracts, all of our contracts are 40% MWBE or more.
Amazing.
So if we can do it, other firms can do it.
Absolutely.
It goes back to perspective though, Cheryl, and it's unfortunate, but you know, I've even had Black clients wear the white ISIS. I hate to say it, but it's a perspective, and people have to be open to the fact that you really can perform, and and sometimes it's better. We don't have defaults in any of our files. We haven't failed on any of our projects because we can't afford to. We know that if we fail, we will never get back in that door again, number one. But number two, it's that much harder for all the female and women, and minority companies that are coming behind us. So we can't fail. And I'm competing against companies that have files of defaults, cure letters, and all kinds of issues. And I've come in
and
lawsuits, bankruptcies, but they continue to come back. If I had any of those, I would just be, that client would never work with me again. And they would never give me an opportunity. I would never get an opportunity if there was a bankruptcy on any of my paperwork. So, you know, but still it's the perception of when we're sitting around the table and just trying to put together. Now, the clients that have actually worked with us, given us the opportunity, they will pick us over a large company anytime because they know that they like our staff, they know what we can do, but we have to have that first opportunity. And, you know, and I talk to private America right now because I feel like there's a lot of talking, there are a lot of calls. All of them are trying to saying they want minority firms, but no contracts have been signed. Mm-hmm. And this has been going on since March, since George Floyd. They've been calling and saying, you know, we want to work with you, we want to work with you. But the dollars are not transferring, projects and the contracts aren't being signed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, and that is where the rubber hits the road. It's, you know, the window dressing that Cheryl's talking about comes in many, many forms, and we see it over and over again. And it could be the client just saying, I want to make sure I've reached out to minority firms, but I'm not really trying to work with them. It could be the majority company saying, I'm going to work with a minority firm, but I don't really want them to have a real role. Yes. All of that. Yes. But Cheryl and I decided we're not putting up with that. We put our foot down on that, and we will just say, we're not the company for you.
Or they'll tell you, you need a bond, knowing they're not putting up a bond. They're just doing company guarantee.
Wow. You know, that just says that there's so much more work that has to be done. And I can attest to exactly what you're saying. Ricky and I have talked, Chairman Smith, before about window dressing, firms that, you know, you hire one African-American just to meet your diversity quotas, you know, if there is a quota, or to make it appear as if you're inclusive. Primes, as you say, bringing on sub-minority contractors, but not really giving them meaningful roles, right? You're putting them into this administrative box and boxing them in. So we've talked about that. There's so much work to be done. And, that was a question I wanted to ask you. What are your thoughts on how the industry moves forward with creating more equitable landscape? What best practices are you seeing on some, in dealing with some of the clients that you've dealt with and what they're putting in place to kind of help with some of the obstacles that you've just talked about? Can you share anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some companies, private companies, that are really trying to do it. They're trying to figure it out because it's not easy. It's taking a big ship and making it turn right. It takes a long time. And the same is true. I feel like the public entities have been way ahead on this because they've been working on it for many, many years. It changed a little bit with Ward Connolly coming across the country and getting rid of all the minority programs, but everybody's trying to bring that back. But they're working on it. Then I think that there's some of the competitive companies that Cheryl and I compete against that are finally, after all these years we've been in business, are trying to do something about it. So I do see, I see baby steps. Like I said, we need to see the money flowing because the problem is the wealth gap between African Americans, and I'm just saying African Americans and everybody, white Americans. There is a wealth gap, and it's going to take a lot to fix that. And once that needle starts moving, we're going to see a major change in this country, and it's only fair. So, that comes from putting Black people in your boardroom so that they can set policy, putting Black people in your senior management, like Cheryl said, so that they can hire more African Americans, promoting the African Americans that have been within because they've been there for a long time, just pigeonholed on one job. Start looking at them and promoting them. The same with businesses, teaming up with businesses, like Cheryl and I. Cheryl and I, by the way, bring along a lot of minority businesses, and I want her to tell you about what she's doing with the mechanical company. But on, most of our projects, almost all of them, we have a minority partner. We've been actually lately joint venturing with other minority companies and being a complete minority-led team, and we're winning a lot. And we're trying to put together a national agenda with the national minority companies to say, how can we do more of this? How can we work together to push this agenda and then bring along all the smaller minority firms with us? So Cheryl, tell them what you're doing with your mechanical engineering firm.
Yeah. And then after that, we'll pivot to see if we have any questions in the chat and then wrap it up. Man, we need another segment, I tell you. Go ahead, Cheryl. We do.
So the biggest way, per McKinsey report, to deal with the wealth gap among Black and Hispanics and whites is through entrepreneurship and getting these companies, creating these companies with Black and Hispanic ownership. And so in light of that, a good friend of mine, John Rice, who was a partner at AKF, he is mechanical engineer. We formed a company called Legacy Engineers to do exactly that, to address Black ownership in the engineering field. So we created a mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection design firm where we are making a path for Black engineers and Hispanics to find their way to ownership. We are going to build this company up over the next, several years, and then we're going to turn the company over to these young leaders. And that is going to be our little contribution or test to address Black entrepreneurship.
That is phenomenal. That is just phenomenal. I love it. I love everything about both of you. You're just so impactful and empowering. I really do think we need another segment with you guys. I'm gonna push Mr. Smith to do that. Because I didn't get through half of my questions, but I'm gonna turn it over to him now because I think we do have a couple of questions in the chat. People are just anxious to come before you. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith to wrap us up and get some of the questions answered. Thank you.
He's on mute.
Unmute, Ricky.
Ricky, you're muted.
Thank you, Tamika, so much for your Q&A. And Cheryl and Deryl, I can't thank you enough for your answers are one thing, and they're great, responsive answers, but your story and you are just so inspiring. You really are. And I wish we could have multiple sessions with you, because I'm sure there's 10 times more that you could share with us. And you share it with so much passion and joy and humility, and you're so genuine. And so we truly appreciate you sharing your story with us. Trust me, it is inspiring so many people out there. And some of them don't look like us, believe it or not, but you're inspiring a lot of people. And so I think we have about 5 minutes to get in a couple questions. One question that I have is, let me see, I'm trying to read it. It says, do both companies prime and JV projects? And what was the journey to go from being a sub to becoming a prime? Which, as I'm sure you know, has its challenges kind of going through that transition from a sub to a prime.
So the answer is yes. We prime or JV like 60% of our work right now. And the process to go there is just doing it. You know, after you've subbed for a while and, you know, work on finding a leader to prime. The key to priming a job is having a leader to run the project. And so, you know, you've got to get a leader that can run a project.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're in the same position. When I started the firm in New York in 1991, the goal was to identify agencies that had money, that had budgets, become a sub, learn the client, and from there transition into a prime or a joint venture partner. And you don't do that with the shotgun approach. You do that with a very targeted approach. I work primarily in threes. So I take the top three and I work those three till until, you know, I get an answer. Okay. And so you don't go to every agency in New York and start trying to do that. You just start with a few. And then after you get several of them, you know, 3 of them under your belt, and you know, transitioned into a prime role or a JV role, then you can start going to other agencies, and what you learn will be transferable to those new groups of clients.
So you touched on this, the next question, you touched on this earlier, but this is kind of one of those come to Jesus with questions, or at least it wants a come to Jesus kind of response. What are a few tips for MWBEs to partner, team, and stop being non-supportive of each other? You know,
and realize that they are stronger together than apart. And I actually have real contracts that I can point to where I teamed up with my MBE competition, and we worked together about 5 years to win a major project, and we won it. And since that time, we've won 2 or 3 other projects together. We've brought in another minority firm to be a part of this with us, and we're winning work. So, you know, just because we don't want to be crabs in a barrel, there's a lot of work out there. And if we want to see all minority team, we can achieve that, but we have to work together. And, you know, we sat down and said, okay, we're not really going to worry about percentages right now. We're going to first look at who can do what and what does this client want. And then we're going to go from there. And we've been successful, not just in DC, but in Fort Worth, in Dallas. We have throughout our cities, we are now doing these arrangements, and it's been very successful.
And I want to add to what Daryl's saying, because Daryl's speaking, from the perspective of minority and women owners and how they should work together. I want to address the clients. I want to address the agencies. I want to say they need to create more opportunities that make sense for minority firms to team together. If you put out a $200 million design bill, which is where New York is today, everything's design bill, the chances of an MWBE firm being able to manage that is, even if we team, is going to be very difficult. And so the agencies need to start debundling and creating opportunities for us to work together. Because our numbers in New York have just, they've gone through the roof.
And Cheryl, you are so right. And each one of the ones we've won, it's been the client has said, you know what, that's a great idea. I like the fact that you all are all together. And we had to, go through the whole procurement process and make sure everything was right. But, the client needs to want that. And for Fort Worth, Texas to do it, I think everybody in the United States should be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, they could procure and give more points for MWBE, 100% MWBE teams.
Right.
So for anyone who wants to contact Cheryl or Daryl or their respective companies, AMAC will make that information available to you. We'll work with them and we'll make those contacts available to you. As the chair, I'm going to use executive privilege. I'm going to ask one more question. I know we're 1 minute over time. And that question is, both in the introduction that Mika did so well, it showed the heritage that your companies are based on, that you come from. It also, you talked about wealth. Both of you talked about the importance to build wealth. So many of our minority-owned companies in particular, they build companies and those companies go away once they're gone. They don't pass those companies on. They don't have family members to take those companies on and build wealth and legacy within their families. What are your thoughts on that? And what are you doing to make sure that, 30, 40, 50 years from now, they're Mckissick still talking about your great legacy?
I just want to say succession planning is so important because it's gonna happen whether you want it to or not, right? You just said that. We're gonna move on into another existence and we're gonna have to plan for what we leave here. So I don't think that we take enough time to do exactly that, to build a management team, number one, that can function without the owner, the one person. So you have to have that strong management team. And two, what are you gonna do with the ownership of your company? And so that needs to happen, 10 years before you decide to exit. And hopefully you can plan your exit.
Well,
Yes, and so I agree with Cheryl on all of that. And we've built a strong management, and my big thing is that the owner is usually responsible for the business development. And that's my favorite part of the job. But I've created a scenario now where I can pull back and there are other people that are doing it. And I can still do the things I want to do. If I want to go after a big project and lead it, I can still do that. But I have a team that can do that without me. And I think that's, really key in sustaining it. It's business first. It's BD, then do the job.
Well, both of you are certainly doing it extremely well. And again, we are so appreciative of your time, your inspirational story. We will, you don't have to push me, Tamika. We will pursue Cheryl and Deryl in one way, shape, or form to continue to share their story with the AMAC family. For those of you who joined us virtually, thank you so much for your time. I hope you found this conversation as inspiring as we have. Tamika did an outstanding job with her questions, sharing some insight yourself. And so thank you so very much, Tamika, for leading us through this session.
Thank you for
Please
having me.
enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both, and hope to speak with you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.